Hello everybody, this is Jacob Tucker here and welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be covering capability controllers, which is the new capability system that is coming to Cadence 1.0, which is the smart contract language for the Flow blockchain. This update won't be live on testnet mainnet, I think for a little bit, maybe a couple months. I think the planned update is for the middle of 2024, but I'm just making this video to get you all prepared. So I'm going to be walking through all of the new features that are coming with the capability controllers and what you should be aware of. But just note that everything I'm going through today is already in a written tutorial on Emerald Academy. So I'm actually literally going to be following this tutorial. This tutorial. This tutorial walks you through the old capability system and the new one. I'm just going to be walking through the new one in this video. But you're more than welcome to go and check this out. I'll leave the link to that in the description. So without further ado, let's get into it. So let's just establish some context. So the contract that we're going to be working with today is called Hello World. It's very simple. All it has is a resource called greeting. Inside of that resource, there is another variable called greeting, which is a string, and that's just going to store like a hello world or whatever. It's not that important. This resource gets initialized by that greeting. So if you pass in hello world, it'll set that to hello world. And then the only other thing it contains is a function to change the greeting, where you just pass in a new greeting, and then it sets that greeting equal to the new one. And this function is only callable by the change greeting entitlement. So if you are confused on entitlements, I actually have another video tutorial on entitlements and also another Emerald Academy written tutorial on entitlements. So would definitely recommend you check that out if you're confused by this. But the short summary is that this function can only be called if the reference that is calling it has a change greeting entitlement. So if it's authorized to call it. And then simply just a public function to mint new greeting. So the only thing we've done so far is we have made a transaction called store resource, and you see I've actually ordered these scripts and transactions in the order we're going to be doing them today. So the first one is zero store resource, and all it does is it's very simple. It just mints a new greeting where we pass the greeting in for as a transaction argument, and it says signer.storage.save. We're saving that resource to /storage/mygreeting. Now, even this might be a bit different. If you're used to normal Cadence, this would probably be signer.save, but the new way is signer.storage.save. And our account reference has to be authorized, to access storage. So that's simple, right? No capabilities just yet. Now we're going to dive into capabilities. So what is a capability? A capability is something that, let's say you have something in your storage. A capability is almost like an arrow that points to that piece in storage. Now, it depends based on the type of no longer the type. Depending on the entitlements that are present on the capability, you'll be able to access different things. Now, there's two different types of capabilities. There's a public capability, which is what the public will be able to read and fetch from. And then there's storage capabilities, which used to be called private capabilities, but they're now called storage capabilities. And that points directly at storage and is usually not intended for the public at all, which is why it's not living in the public realm. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But essentially, it's just an arrow that points to something in storage so that you can access it, right? So let's do it. So the first thing that we want to talk about today is how to create a public capability. The reason this is first is because this is by far the most common thing you're going to be doing when you're talking about capabilities. We have already saved this resource to storage here. Now let's go ahead and actually create a capability on that. So the first thing I'm going to do is say let capability, or let cap, equals signer.capabilities.storage.issue issue. And then we have to pass in the type of our capability here. So what we want to do is, because if we look at our contract, we don't want the public to be able to change our greeting, right? So we don't want to give the public this entitlement, the change greeting entitlement. We just want to give them the ability to read the greeting variable. So we have to provide a type here, and the type is just going to be very simple. It's just going to be hello world.greeting, because in Cadence 1.0, this type is not entitled to anything. So the only thing it'll be able to access is this greeting variable. And then we have to provide a path here. So this is where our resource actually lives. So you can see we saved it to /storage/mygreeting. So that's exactly what we're going to provide here as well. /storage/mygreeting. And so that's great. So that creates actually a storage capability, but I'm going to dive into storage capability later because that's usually the more rare case. Let's go over how do we actually publish this to the public now. So it's actually quite easy. We can say signer.capabilities.publish, and we pass in the capability we just created, and then we provide a public path. So we can say /public/mygreeting. Now just note that this second half of the path does not have to match this one. I just do that because it's most helpful for me. But now we've passed in this storage capability to the public, and so now the public can actually access this capability if they wanted to. So I'm going to test all of this in a second here, but before I do that, let's now go ahead and write a script that'll actually test that. So here's a script, and what we want to do is we, as the public, right, because we're in a script, we want to fetch that public capability. So let's go ahead and do that. So we can say let cap equals get account user, right? That's how we get a public account, .capabilities, .get, and we have to pass in a type here. So remember, the type that we created it on, or the type that we should be expecting, is a hello world.greeting, where the path is /public/mygreeting, right? That's the public path that we provided right there. So that's great. Now, what we can go ahead and say, if, and actually just for better readability, I'm just going to space it like this instead. Now, if this capability does not exist, we can panic and say this public capability does not exist, right? So this is going to return, or this part of the code is going to return optional, but this part of the code is going to say, okay, you know what? If that capability doesn't exist, just panic in the script. Now, I'm a big advocate in saying that in scripts you shouldn't really be panicking. You should probably just return nil or something, but just for demonstration. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and say let greeting reference or greeting ref equals the capability that we just got dot borrow. And we can, again, we could provide another panic here and just say, something went wrong when trying to borrow the type. Okay. And then we could just return, greeting reference dot greeting, and we could just say this. You know what? This script returns a string. So here we go. So right. So this gets the public capability from the public path, and then you take that capability, you actually borrow it to get the underlying reference, and then you return the greeting variable from that reference, which is simply just this variable right here. Now, a couple of things to note. In scripts, you actually can get an authorized account, so otherwise known as an auth account. You can do that, but just imagine if we were in a transaction or something, in a transaction, you would be able to access someone else's public capability. You would not be able to access their storage capabilities because you can only access that on an authorized account, okay? So there we go. So let's actually go ahead and test all this out. So I've started an emulator. I've deployed my contract here. Let's go ahead and say flow transactions send /0 store resource .cdc, and then I'm going to pass in just hello as my sort of I provided something wrong here. Flow transactions send, like that. Okay, so we send the transaction. Perfect. So now we just did this one, so our resource now exists in our storage. Now we can go ahead and create the actual public capability. So let's go ahead and create that. We actually don't need this argument here. I just realized that. So let's go ahead and do that. So we can just go back and say, I think it's one create cap.cdc, and boom, it goes through. So now we've created a public capability, and now we actually want to run a script to get that public capability. So let's try that as well. So flow scripts execute /to get cap.cdc, and the user address, which is the emulator account, because that's what we're testing this on, like that. And we should see hello, right? So we get the hello greeting, which is awesome. Okay, so let's keep going. So that's great, right? So now the next thing that we want to do is I actually just want to show you a simplified way of doing this. So it's a little awkward when you're getting the public capability, then borrowing it. You might be just saying, is there an easier way just to get the capability and borrow it in one sort of clean swoop? And there actually is, and I'll show you that right now. So we can say let greeting ref equals get account, the user, .capabilities, and then instead of saying dot, so before we said capabilities.get, we can actually literally just say capabilities.borrow. And we can pass in that same type here, which is hello world.greeting, and then pass in the public path here, which is /public/mygreeting, and then we can panic, right? And just say panic this capability does not exist. And then we can simply return greeting ref.greeting, right? So it's actually much simpler this way. If you want to handle the other case, you totally can, but just to show you that this works, let's go ahead and run 3 get cap simplified, and you can see it works perfectly fine, right? So yeah, this is just another easy way to do it. Okay, so moving on. Oh, I already spoiled that. But moving on, what if we want to remove a public capability? So in this case, this is assuming, let's say that we publish a capability to the public. We want the public to be able to read our resources or read our NFTs or whatever, whatever else. But you know what? Now we don't want them to do that anymore, right? We don't want the public to be able to read our capability anymore. We can just simply say signer.capabilities.unpublish and then pass in the public path where you published it. So /public/mygreeting, and then it'll no longer be available. So if we just wanted to test this out, we could run this and say flow transaction send, and then run for remove cap, and that goes through. So if we were to now try to run, the script to get the capability, what do you think will happen? Well, let's try it out. And we get a panic, right? This capability does not exist because it no longer exists, right? So pretty straightforward. Yeah, pretty straightforward, right? Okay. So the next thing we want to do is we want to say, so creating a storage cap. So we actually have already done this, right? When we go back to our first transaction here, create cap, I actually showed you how to create a storage capability. That's actually right here. The only difference was that we actually publish it to a public path. So what if we want to do some sort of situation where we don't publish it to a public path, right? We just take this capability and pass it around. Well, you could totally do that. You could totally do that. So let's actually go back here to this one and let's try that out. So, okay, so we write let storage cap equals signer.capabilities.storage.issue. .issue. And again, we've done this before in this transaction, but this time we know that we're not going to publish it to a public path, right? We're not going to take the capability and put it into a public path. We're actually just going to keep it to ourselves and maybe give it to certain people that we want to access or be able to change our greeting, right? So only certain people should be able to do that. So in this case, what we can say is we're going to give the capability an authorized entitlement to the change greeting. So this capability can change our greeting. So we can do that by saying hello world.change greeting, right? This is a entitlement right here, and then the reference, which is hello world.greeting. Okay, and then the path, which will be /storage/ and then you could provide anything here. Let's just say like my greeting or something. I don't know, or my change greeting. I don't know. We'll just provide my change greeting. Okay, so now that we've created our storage capability, we need to store it somewhere. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we can say is signer.storage.save, right? And then we can pass in our storage cap here and then store that to /storage/my greeting storage cap, okay? And it's giving us a problem here because we actually need to also pass in storage to our account reference here. Okay, cool. Oh, I think I meant to say storage cap up here. Boom. Okay, so now we have saved our capability to a storage path, which is great. So that means that in a later transaction, and again, I'm not going to actually code this in because it's not too important for now, but if we look at our sort of written tutorial here, you would be able to fetch that later by doing something like this, where you say let storage cap equals signer.storage.load. So we load something out of storage, and the thing that we're loading out of storage is that authorized capability, right? From /storage/my greeting storage cap. And then once you have that capability, you can pass that around to whoever you want. You could store that in a resource and give that to somebody. You could, again, the main idea here is that you're taking that capability and you're passing it around to other people to almost act as a key to your account to be able to change your greeting, your greeting variable. So that's how that would be done in the future. Okay. So great. So let me move that back up here. Now I just want to also show you something. In fact, let me go ahead and run this transaction really quick before I go on to the next step. So this step is, let's just get rid of everything here. We also definitely don't need that greeting thing to be passed in. So this actually should be transactions. So flow transaction send 5 create storage cap.cdc. It correctly creates one, and now I want to show you how do you get all the capabilities. So or the storage caps. So what this does is this script goes into your account. It actually gets the auth account. You can see it does that right here. And then it says auth account.capabilities.storage.getControllers. Now, what controllers are is it's basically it's kind of like what it sounds like. It's a controller over a certain storage path. So you can create a capability on a storage path, right? You can create a bunch of them, but they're all controlled by what's called a controller. So we can actually go ahead and run this. Let's say flow or I think it's actually flow scripts execute, and let's just this should be 7, and let's just go ahead and change this to 6 get all caps, and then we also can pass in a storage path. So the storage path would be /storage/myreading, like that. I think it's okay. So I guess in the emulator doesn't want to export this, but I guess you could try this on a later at a later point on your own. But I guess for some reason the emulator doesn't want to export this value. But basically what you would see is, and I'll actually show you, that type that I was just showing you right there is this right here. So it's a struct that contains the type of the capability, the ID of that capability, the capability itself, the ability to delete it, right? So there's a couple things you can do on that type. So it's kind of helpful to see, but you would be able to see that if you ran the script, I guess, on your own. Okay. Oh, and I'm actually spoiling that as well. So the last step here is what happens if we want to remove a storage capability, right? Again, it's actually not that hard. What we can do, and this should probably be removed, but what we can do is go ahead and say let capability, capability controller equals signer.capabilities.storage.getController, right? And we pass in the capability ID. So each capability has its own ID, right? And that will, you pass that in right there. And then you can panic. Let's just space this out a little differently. Actually, let's space all this out a little differently. .storage.getController. Then we can panic and say panic. This capability does not exist, right? And then we can say capability controller .delete. And that will get rid of the capability, or the storage capability, so that storage capability can no longer be used ever again. So that is the end of this video. I hope that was helpful. And again, if you have any questions, I definitely recommend checking out that written tutorial. It's very helpful. Of course, you can always ask me questions on Twitter or in our Emerald City Discord. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and have a great day. Bye.